Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over everything that you need to know about the Soulforge. Of course, the Soulforge is one of the two main features added in the 3.1 patch of Gems of War. It is unlocked from completing out the Blighted Lands questline and then doing the bonus questline after it, which will then unlock the Soulforge, which you can then enter either by clicking through Blighted Lands or going through the minigame tab and then clicking on Soulforge. So let's go over every single one of the tabs, basically go over what is efficient to do for every single one, troops you should look out for to craft, and basically just how to use all of the new resources called jewels. So, first on this screen, you can see we have a leveling system. It has over here, as you level them, all the things that it ends up unlocking. One good thing to note about this leveling system is once you level it, you never have to level it up again. So it's not something that's like reoccurring, like Sentinels that you have to do every single week. Once you do this the initial time, it is done forever. So, how much does it actually take to be able to get it done? It either takes 1,900 kills that you have to constantly keep leveling up as you do so. Do make sure you do that, because as it currently stands, if you don't click the level up button, your kills will not roll over into the next level, so do keep that in mind. But it takes either 1,900 kills, or it takes 1,350 gems. This essentially means that every single kill that you do prior to not having a fully leveled up Soulforge is worth around 0.71 gems, or assuming you kill exactly 4 troops per battle, it is worth exactly 2.84 gems, which is approximately 3 gems per battle, given that you might get 5 kills on some battles. So, with that being said, you should basically never, ever spend gems leveling up your Soulforge. You're basically getting free resources by not leveling it up. You will end up wasting about 1,350 gems from leveling this thing, and as it currently stands, there's so few jewels actually in circulation in the game that you can't even really use the higher levels of the Soulforge as this current moment anyways, so it would just be a waste. Just let it level up naturally. Be patient, let it take a week or two. You can actually get it done in as little as 3 hours if you were to truly grind it out with some kind of quick explore or challenge team, so definitely just let it go naturally over time. So, jewels. This is of course the new resources added to the game. There are 8 jewels. There are sapphires, emeralds, rubies, topazes, amethyst, garnets, one for each of the 6 colors. There are then diamonds as well as shards. Diamonds are used namely for making legends and mythics. Shards are used for basically making all of these other ones. As you can see with each one of these, it takes 500 shards. With the diamonds, it takes 1,000, as well as 100 souls, and that will make 10 of these. As far as the most efficient thing that you should be doing with these, basically convert all of them into diamonds. I haven't yet, just out of the slight chance that I might need them for something else, but as it currently stands in the way that the game is set up, you really have no need to convert these things into anything other than diamonds, simply because of how valuable these diamonds actually are. So, over to the trait stones. Some of these are worth it, some of these are not. As far as the minor trait stone, it actually is worth it. Only 50 souls and 2 major trait stones to make 1 minor trait stones. This might still seem somewhat expensive, given that you're basically using a bunch of higher resources to make a even smaller one, but in this one instance, it's actually pretty decent value, mainly because of how major trait stones are used in this game. There tends to be an excessive excess of them, and making them go into minor trait stones is kind of nice, because minor trait stones is generally one of the quickest trait stones you run out of. You get a lot of them accumulated, but you also end up using a lot of them. Obviously, more minor trait stones are used than any other trait stone, and relative to the amount of major trait stones that are used, you're definitely going to be needing to convert some of these at times. And if you just needed, and if you didn't want to have to farm them, and you just needed something like 8 or like 11 or however many, it's really efficient for doing small amounts. Basically all of these within the crafting system, they're made more so for the purpose of making a small amount to close the gap in gaining a level. They are not made to be a substitute to actually farming up trait stones, because they are rather expensive on some of these higher ones. As far as major trait stones, you will literally never have a need to craft this ever. you will generally have an excess of major trait stones, and if not, you're better off just farming them yourself, because throwing in 3 minors to make 1 major, even if it didn't have the soul cost, is ridiculously expensive, and you will never actually need to do that. As far as this one, again, you have an excess of major trait stones generally, so this is actually not that bad. Being able to craft runics for 200 souls and 7 major, again, somewhat pricey, can be worth it though. Particularly if you're planning on not really needing as many minors and you want to convert your majors into runics instead. Definitely a pretty good idea. And now for the one that a lot of people have been wanting, all the arcanes. The biggest issue with this right now, I don't mind the runic trait stone cost. It's mainly that 2 celestial trait stone cost that makes these really, really bad right now. They're still kind of worth it if you only needed a few. Personally, I would go out of my way just to I would still go out of my way to kind of like farm them and just do standard trait stone farming, just do explore for an hour or so and get ourselves like a couple arcanes. I still feel like is more efficient than trying to craft them. But if you needed to close the gap a little bit, you can see it starts getting really, really expensive. The fact that you're downgrading celestials, there are an excess of celestials currently within the economy. But the way that they made this patch, all legends and mythics that you will end up crafting within the Soulforge end up using these celestials now as well. So there's really no point in throwing your celestials at arcanes for the most part. Unless you're really desperate to get that last few you need, you really would not bother with them. As far as celestial trait stones, this is very situational on if it is or is not worth it. Given how new the system is, I'd say it's currently not worth it because there's other things you'll want to be spending these little colored gems on. But as far as later on, probably in about a month or two, once you start getting an excess of these little colored ones, it could be okay to actually make celestial trait stones out of these things. I really don't see why not. Celestial trait stones are, of course, technically the hardest trait stone to get. They're the lowest drop rate. But of course, since there are so many more arcanes, it's technically harder to get each one of these specific arcanes. But yeah, if you needed a little bit more celestials for, let's say, like crafting a legend or a mythic or something, I could see this being okay as a convert. Probably not the most efficient thing, since you can actually convert these into troops, which we'll be going over next. But if you really needed them, I wouldn't feel bad actually crafting these. So, on to the next ones. As I was just saying, there are now these little crafting stone things. Essentially what these are is a gem key. They are gem keys, focused on a specific color. So let's say we were to open one of these. I'm not going to because currently they're actually quite a bit of a waste because I don't have an excess of this. We don't even have one of every single color yet. But let's say we open one of these. Essentially what will happen is we will get a random troop that is of ultra rare or rarity or higher, ultra rare or higher. So basically a gem key. But it will be of this specific color. So of course, if we open the red one, it will give us a random ultra rare or higher that is red. We do it on purple, random ultra rare or higher that is purple. So essentially just a gem key, just focus on a specific color. This could be particularly good for Guild War days. Like for example, if you needed, let's say you had a horrible yellow team. You don't have any of the good yellow troops. You don't have any of the good legends. You don't have any of the good ultra rares. What you can do is get these. You could go and possibly even use your shards, convert them into yellow, and then go open a bunch of these yellow summoning stones, and then hopefully you would end up getting a drop from them. Of course, it's still just a gem key kind of thing. Opening up 6 gem keys would essentially give you a very similar result as far as the fact that you'd probably get 1 yellow and opening up 6 gem keys. But this would just ensure a gem key that essentially does the color that you specifically want. Are they that worth it? Given that there are a rather limited things to actually use these little colored jewels on that are worth it, I would say yeah, they're probably worth doing. Initially, given some of the other stuff that you have to craft underneath weapons and stuff, you might want to hold off initially on crafting these. But in about a couple weeks to about a month after all these resources kind of begin, once the game kind of settles from all of these new resources being pumped into the game, I'm pretty sure people will start actually throwing their resources at these summoning stones, because there isn't too many other things to throw it at other than, as I mentioned, the celestial trait stone. So next up we have troops. As you can see, once you get the Soulforge to level 9 and 10, there are 4 legends and 4 mythics that you'll be able to craft every single week. This changes on rotation on, I assume, the Monday reset every single week, and it'll give you those 4 choices of legends and mythics. One thing to note about this though is, given how many more legends there are in the game than mythics, it will take a little over a month for the mythics to go fully on rotation, which is pretty decent. There's nothing wrong with that. But unfortunately, given that they only give 4 legends as of this current moment in time, yet there are, I actually forget the exact number, but it will take almost half a year for the legends to go on rotation, where it only takes a little over a month for all the mythics to go on rotation. So if you're looking out for a specific legend, it is likely going to be forever until it actually comes. As far as mythics, it'll be a lot easier. So what should you actually get as far as legends and mythics? These are the main things that you should be spending absolutely 100% of your jewels on. They're one of the only things you even can, but you should definitely be spending on these. As far as what you should be crafting, Ferrous basically dump everything into Ferrous. Whenever you see a Ferrous, if you don't see a Ferrous, wait for a Ferrous. He has absolutely 100% the most value out of anything you will ever craft out of jewels in the Soulforge. The main reason for this is he is by far, without a shadow of a doubt, the best soul farming troop in the game. He is basically 3 warlocks in run, or three necromancies in one, essentially. He has 150% soul bonus, and this does indeed stack with multiple Ferrous. So you can use triple Ferrous with a Valkyrie. It gains upwards of 50,000 souls per hour, can even do a little bit over 60,000 if you're really diligent and efficient in your gameplay. It's really, really strong. It's about 3 times as quick, or assuming you have 3 Ferrous, it's about 3 times as quick as the second best soul farming method in the game. So yeah, it's absolutely insane getting these things. So it is, of course, a little expensive, 4,000 jewels. Not quite sure how long that will take because we still don't know how many jewels we get from guild tasks. I'd assume it would take approximately a month or so. We're on like what, day 4 or 5-ish, and we have 310 right now, plus it's a jewel day, which will be gaining quite a bit more than what we normally do. So yeah, I'd say about a month-ish or so to be able to make a mythic. So that's basically after, let's say, 3 to 5 months, you would then have 3 Ferrous, which you can then use to farm up all the souls you will ever need. As far as other alternatives that you can do, because obviously you won't always want to do a Ferrous, it is definitely the best value, but maybe you want something else. Some other things that are decent are things like Dragon Soul, Emperor Corvash, Scion, Pristine X, and Guard's Avatar and Famine. Those are just a few, to name a few. We will be every single Monday from now on basically going over to Soulforge during our event video, kind of saying like what is good to craft and what isn't on a given day. But honestly, in my personal opinion, there really is only one thing to craft, and that is Ferrous. Let's say you do have 3 Ferrous though. What should you craft? Let's say you're an endgame player that has pretty much everything in the game. Most of you probably already know this, but Exxathos is probably what you should be focusing on. The main reason for this is he's the only mythic currently in the game that is only obtainable through the crafting system itself. Kind of unique. He's also because of this, the most expensive mythic currently in the game, because the only way you could ever obtain him is through crafting. Not only that, but if you compare him to the cost of a normal mythic, he actually has an even higher cost than that of a normal mythic. So even if it wasn't for that fact, he is still a higher cost than them. As far as this mythic, you can see that there are 3 other little icon thingies here. These are weapons that you need to get in order to be able to even initially craft them. These weapons are obtained, of course, from the little weapons tab, and they are not consumed upon use. So let's say you get all 3 of these, you then craft them. You get to keep all 3 of these weapons when you do go and craft them out. One other thing to note about Exxathos is, unlike every other troop in the game, he is the only one that is ever constantly on rotation. So every single week he will be craftable, so do keep that in mind. He's not one of the mythics that keep shifting every week. He will always be there regardless. So as far as weapons, every single one of these purple background weapons, ignore them completely. There's almost never a need to get them. I probably will once we start getting an excessive excess of these kind of little colored jewel things. But initially you really have no need to go for them. There are weapons that are worth it though. Every single one with these goldenish backgrounds, kind of like a legendary weapon, are definitely worth getting, particularly the Exxathos weapons. Not only are the Exxathos weapons used for the new mythic, but they are also all dual colored, unlike these other weapons. Every single one of these, if you go click on them, they do indeed cover 2 colors, meaning that they will be more useful for things like arena and just in use in general. So do keep that in mind. The other new legendary ones, while decent in what they can do, are only single color. So do keep that in mind when going about crafting. You will most likely want to craft the Exxathos ones first, not only to get the new mythic, but because they are dual colored. So that's where you're going to be throwing a good majority of your colored gems is for these weapons. So there is another one as well. Of course, we saw that Exxathos requires the 3 Exxathos ones: the soul, the heart, and the eye. But there's also another weapon, the first mythic weapon in the entire game, called the Dawnbringer. This one requires the Dawn Stone, the Shattered Braid, and the Broken Guard. And what is this? It is a 1,000,000, a small loan of 1,000,000 souls of a weapon. It is a very, very, very high amount of souls required. Even with a triple Farish Raw team, it will take upwards of 26 hours to actually farm the souls that would be required to create this weapon. 100,000 for each of the 3 weapons, and 1,000,000 for the actual weapon itself. It is the only mythic weapon currently in the game. They are, of course, likely to add more into the future. With that being said, that's actually one of the reasons why I'm actually not going to be throwing my resources at these little summoning stones. Keep in mind, the current state of the Soulforge and everything that you're currently able to craft will likely be expanded and possibly even rebalanced in the future. So do keep that in mind. So don't waste too many of your resources on things you don't need, like these epic weapons that all have the purple backgrounds, because there may be new things in the future that you're going to be needing them for. As far as this Dawnbringer, I basically say completely ignore its existence. Just forget it's even here. It is a somewhat decent weapon and will have its purposes, but its cost is quite expensive as far as how long it will take for a person to realistically farm this, given how many other things that there are to be doing with your time in this game. It is something that you could do if you're a true 100% completionist. It's just as a normal player, you are never going to need to even remotely think about crafting this weapon, so do keep that in mind. So there is one other tab. There are the conversion of the diamonds into souls. In short, never do this, it's a complete waste. Relative, just so you know, like what their ratio is to gems, I ended up calculating it out, and if you were to buy the best gem pack, which I believe is 500 gems for 18,000 souls, it comes out to a value that every single gem that you spend is worth 36 souls. As you can see here with the diamonds, each diamond is worth only 10 souls. With that being said, there's basically no point whatsoever in ever converting your diamonds into souls. If you were to do this for whatever reason, you'd do gems instead, and personally I'd say don't even bother with either, because you can easily farm upwards of 20,000 souls per hour, which if you convert that to gems is upwards of 500 free gems per hour, which isn't that bad at all. So yeah, basically ignore this exists. The only time this would ever be worth it is if they were to rebalance it to upwards of 500 souls for it, or if they were to even go extremely generous and go up to like 1,000 souls for 10 diamonds. But in its current state, unless they make it 50 or higher per gem, which would be 500 for the 10, that's the minimum that would be even remotely possible option. But as it currently stands, never craft this. It's just throwing your resources away if you end up crafting this. Not to mention 100 souls is so ridiculously easy to get. You can get that in one battle. You can get more than that in one battle. Whereas 10 diamonds, that's the way that diamonds are handed out in this game is quite limited, and you'll get a lot more value out of those 10 diamonds than you ever will out of the 100 souls. So do keep that in mind. But anyways, that'll wrap it up for everything you should really need to know about the Soulforge. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Again, as I mentioned, every single Monday on the event video, we will be going over if it is worth crafting whatever troops may be available here. But as I said, for the most part, all you really need to do is save for Farish Ra. He just has such excessively good value due to the need for souls in this game now, because as you can see, I haven't really been mentioning it that much on every single one of these, but almost every single thing in the Soulforge does indeed require souls. I don't really care about this too much because, of course, Farish Ras can farm them like crazy, but without Farish Ras, it is a lot slower, and it's upwards of 2 times slower at minimum without it. And it's just honestly a absolute lifesaver in this game. Not only do you need it to speed up and expedite your capability of leveling every troop in the game, you also need it in order to just do stuff in the Soulforge, which will start to chip down your souls quite substantially. Some of the things in the Soulforge are a little bit expensive as far as the souls relative to if you were a new game player. So do keep that in mind. Quite a bit of it, like for example, even if you wanted to craft like let's say a gem key, or a red focused or any color focused gem key, that costs 100 souls every single time. That can really start chipping in to your resources, particularly if you're a player that can't even like get a troop up to level like 19 or something. That's really going to start chipping into them. So do keep that in mind when going around anything in Soulforge. You will start losing souls quicker than you may think, so just be aware of your values and don't overexpend on them, and save for Ferrous Raws or Dragon Souls and other things that can farm souls efficiently, because they are now more of a resource that's actually viable. Before, back in the day, and pretty much any point before Soulforge was ever released, souls were basically considered like this little side thing that weren't really ever needed. Now that's completely different, so you definitely want to be efficient in accumulating them into the future so that you can effectively use your Soulforge. Anyways, that's basically everything you need to know about the Soulforge. Hope this was helpful. Still, any other questions, feel free to leave them in chat. We will be doing a completely separate video in the near future, going over everything related to the dungeon system and what's efficient with that. Anyways, I'll see y'all later. Thanks so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.